So welcome to the episode, guys. I'm really honored to have you guys as the first guest on the first episode of new season of our podcast. Garat, obviously we've had one with you, but we kind of changed the format a little bit, switched to more of a roundtable kind of discussion. And our new way is essentially, we pick up certain vertical and then we invite guests who have experience in this vertical, and we kind of pick a few topics, a few lines, and speak about that in more discussion format. So yeah, I'm really glad to have you guys here. So we have today, Garat, we have Luma, and we have Richie from our team as well. It's first time for Richie as well here. So yeah, really happy for this setup. Do you guys want to, before we get into sort of topics, do you guys want to sort of quickly introduce yourself and kind of, tell us what you're up to these days?
My name is Garat. I graduated from the University of Cambridge last year. I was doing business management at the business school. Currently visiting analyst at a green tech fund called TSP Ventures and a venture scout for Ada Ventures.
Cool.
Happy to be here.
That's amazing. Cool.
Thank you. Very glad to be here. Thank you very much, Alex, for inviting.
Anytime.
My name is Luma. I had marketing. I lead marketing comms at a renewable energy software startup. I'll tell you more about it.
Please do. Yeah, Richard, do you want to quickly as well introduce yourself?
Yeah, no, it's great to be on my first season of season 2, so it's fantastic to be here. So I joined Yotewo 6 months ago as a chief business officer. Before that, I was at Deliveroo for 6.5 years, so helping them scale their business-to-business proposition. And in the past, run a couple of my own businesses. And when I heard about this opportunity to work at Yotewo, I was excited to jump in and just meeting great new founders, and fantastic to be here.
Cool. Sounds good. Guys, today's episode is going to be around sustainability and impact investment area, and I think there are a few topics that we wanted to go through, but essentially the first one is probably the hottest one, is about AI and how sustainable is AI. Before getting to the podcast, me and Richie were just reading the news about new fundraising round at OpenAI. Just tell us, how much was it, Richie? Was it couple hundred?
So I think Amazon have invested $50 billion, Nvidia $30 billion, and then it's like another 30 billion from somewhere else. So
like extremely crazy valuations. And also, I don't know if you've seen about the OpenClaw AI, something that people also recently talking quite a lot about. And the question is, it's obviously positioned as a solution that is bringing good to the world, that has a positive impact on the society. But on the other hand, it has questionable impact on the sustainability, right? First, from resource perspective, like water, electricity, and all that, and secondly, from the social perspective as well, in terms of employment, jobs, and things like that. So, would be glad to hear your thoughts on this, guys. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I can start. I have a very kind of niche perspective because I work with renewable energy. So, what I have to say is mainly related to that. What we do at the company where I work at the moment, Renewable, spelled without an E at the end. So Renewable does hourly matching, which is basically analysing how corporates use their energy, how corporates need their energy every hour of the day, and then analysing how they actually buy energy. Because at the moment, historically, it just happens so that everyone buys energy annually. Yeah. So when they sum up all the kind of energy that they used in the year, and then they go and sign a contract for the following years or for the past time on an annual basis to cover the annual volume, that does not show you whether they use the energy in the morning or whether they use the energy in the evenings, whether they just bought solar energy, but they're actually a data center for AI needs, and they run 24/7 round the clock, and they actually use the energy in the winter at 9 p.m. when there is no solar, possibly there's no sun shining. So that hides the signals for the grid. So that hides it doesn't have the incentives to introduce more battery storage, to introduce more wind, more hydro. Obviously, I am simplifying things. There are other issues in the market. There's bottlenecks when new projects get developed and they're not connected to the grid fast enough. There's bottlenecks with interconnectors between different countries. But basically, all of that can come together if we know how data centers, how AI is using energy. And at the moment, we don't know, because most companies just claim 100% renewable. But whenever you see 100% renewable, you can know that it's not as exact. It's not
Accurate,
as
yeah.
accurate as you might
I'm
need.
surprised to hear like you can be like negative, right? So if too many people are producing energy at peak times when the sun's out, and then
Same, yeah. I'm very surprised to see those numbers every time I come across them on LinkedIn posts and everywhere and research because there's so much access during solar hours, and also just from the corporate perspective, they are spending so much money on those 100% renewable claims. And at the same time, they are like that money doesn't really help them to get anywhere because it's just spent, like they're still exposed to volatile market prices to buy energy in those hours when they're not covered. But the money that they spent on energy during daytime is just wasted. But yeah, in terms of AI specifically, the growth that data centers, like the growth that is projected, is enormous. I think I saw a number that data centers are projected to require the same amount of energy by 2030, and 2030 is not that far away, as Japan is using right now, as in the whole country, Japan.
That's
So
crazy.
you can't like the growth is not linear, so
Yeah.
you really have to like prepare for this. Sorry if I jumped into too many details.
No,
there,
that's
but
cool.
I think when we look at like impact AI and like the investing space, I think there's a few angles you have to look at it from. I think you can make the argument that AI plays this double-edged sword in terms of, making things more efficient, having like better data. You can then make decisions to optimize like energy in that sense. And then I think also when you look at impact investing or green tech investing more generally, there's like two fronts.
Yeah.
There's the physical and then there's like the technological front. I'd say the physical front has remained quite rigid, especially like if you look in the UK, people that invest in like physical technologies view like environmental change, climate change, impact as a very like physical phenomena. So maybe you're making solutions to like cool data centers, for example, with like fluids that require like less electricity, or you have like a system that allows like air to move through, so that you're saving power, or even like new carbon capture storage like technologies. Like the field of green tech is so small but so like rapidly advancing in that physical space, and that physical space isn't necessarily divorced from like the technological space.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even if we look at like AI startups that do things such as they like map your emissions, they use like AI to like track like a company's emissions.
Yeah.
There's like specific like carbon tokens or carbon reduction initiatives that are utilizing AI. I think AI plays this critical role, and you can see it's still in consolidation as like a market. The recent raise is like testament to that. You have like partnerships with Amazon, partnerships with Nvidia, SoftBank, and then like the aforementioned partnership with like Meta. It's like all these big companies are like all trying to consolidate this like area where so much is going on, so much is changing, and sustainability ultimately becomes like a branch of where AI is going. Like it plays a role in, I guess, like making the fundamentals of how AI is used. And I think it's interesting to see. So I think when we look at like investing in sustainability, like even like impact, like being an impact investor is like a little different from being like a green tech investor or like a sustainable investor. Impact means a lot of things to a lot of people. So it's very up in the air. But that like idea of like resilience or investing in resilience, I think there's a few attitudes. Like some are like more pro AI, some are like anti AI. Like it's going to destroy our future. It's going to like, ruin our societies. And then, like acknowledging the actual environmental impact, all of the water it's consuming. But I think there is a case for like startups or like initiatives who are like incorporating AI, incorporating like machine learning in the attempt to actually get a solution or make things more efficient in that sense. So I think it's hard to, it's a very broad space. I think AI's usage is, I don't know, like it's being incorporated everywhere. So it's really interesting to see that, I guess, like sparse idea start to like consolidate and like have like structured rounds, and you're giving like certain valuations, and you're able to like quantify what
like
is
a whole separate thing.
Like, so I think it's interesting.
Cool. Because I think it was like energy wise, I don't know, I'm not an expert in this field. I think energy wise, like the usage will be kind of like a new, it's just going to be a new standard of how resources are used. But about the social impact, that's like, I think this one I'm a bit more interested in, because I was reading, like the way I came up with this topic in general, I was reading your article about workforce behind AI, and the sort of the impact on the actual social state, like social environment. Can you tell a bit more about this one, actually, the one you wrote?
So, what do you call it? I enabled it. The term's been used in academia before. It's like the ghosts inside the machine. The idea that there's like synthetic AI. So like a lot of like companies that have like chatbots on their system, it's like, oh, you're talking to an AI chatbot.
Yeah.
But really and truly, you might be speaking to someone in like the Philippines or someone in Nigeria or someone in, I don't know, like Bangladesh, for example. So it's like, there's like two fronts. It's like that synthetic AI, that like quasi AI, where it's like, oh, you're talking to an AI chatbot, it's actually a person there. And then there's also like the training that goes into like actually training an AI model.
Yeah.
There was that big issue with
Case,
Meta. Meta had like the massive case where it was like that one day, like all the violent videos were showcased on Instagram. And it's because they had people physically like watching everything that was labeled violent, everything that was labeled as like sexual material, like people had to physically watch it and label it and like remove it from the site. But there was one day, like I don't know what happened, like people went on strike or something happened, but there was absolutely no filter on like Instagram and on Twitter for 24 hours.
I remember,
So everyone was like posting like what's happened, like you're seeing people be murdered, you're seeing like these atrocities happen on Meta, and like Meta got so much like criticism for it.
Exactly.
And like, you know, private investigators came out and they were like, oh well, like the truth of the matter is that there's people really having to consume this content, and it's a bit of like an ethical question. It's like, oh, like we utilize like people being trained on like violent material to like prevent people's consumption, but ultimately there's a sea of people who are constantly consuming violent material, like
the impact that has on like their mental health. And you know, like you hear about people like being in the army and you know they have to, you know, go through years of, you know, like being reintroduced back, you know, some of the things that I'm having to see. I'm sure I read at one point they had like over 100,000 people just removing content. You know, so you know now obviously AIs can do a lot of the heavy lifting of that.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was thinking, you know, there are two opinions about AI in general. Like one is that, you know, as any kind of shift in society and in progress, people will adapt and the workforce will adapt and sort of everything will adapt. Yeah. But then on the other hand, like I think I wrote a couple articles about it. People are not actually adapting that quick. Like, you know, in our field, for instance, in engineering, like we've seen that the bar for, because, you know, in our case, like, AI engineers became way more demanded than, you know, just normal engineers, and especially not the ones that are doing like AI applications, but the ones that are using AI to like ship quicker. And it raised the bar for like entrance in the industry a lot. And for like junior roles now, it's extremely hard to get into the job of being a software engineer, because your requirements are like crazy, and large companies, they don't really have any benefit of hiring a junior person, because they can hire someone, you know, a little bit senior who'll be using AI and who'll be delivering as like someone super senior. So in that sense, yeah, I think it's tricky in terms of the social impact. I was
reading something just the other day about how like Spotify, for example, they claim that they didn't, I think maybe I'm confusing some numbers there, but I think they didn't write a single line of code last month or something. So that was all done with prompts. But then another issue that's coming out of it is that all that code may malfunction some points later, and debugging the code that was not written by a person is going to be like a separate job.
Crazy,
I'm expecting the code debugger, AI code debugger role.
100%. Yeah, what we've seen, I think, is that like if AI writes the code by itself, it's extremely like bad. But then if the person is like very senior and he has like the knowledge base and kind of everything, and he uses AI to kind of just be more productive, turns out like 1.5, 2 times more productive than his usual kind of performance. And still decent quality. So
on your points earlier, that's really fascinating. I can think of like 2 cases that I was reading about recently. So one was Amazon Fresh. When they started the shops. Was that true? Because I'd never followed it.
It was people always watching the CCTV footage.
Really?
And then they were like manually putting in the items people were.
Really?
Which was that was really bad when they
same thing.
That was And then the other case was actually a very sad one. Again, I may not remember the details, but it was with Meta. And basically it was, I think, Myanmar, and there was a natural kind of disaster happening. And I think either Facebook or Messenger recently introduced in that country. And because of those like automated corrections and like basically AI, you know how AI shows you like different congratulations, and it shows you balloons flying and then some other reactions. But because in that language, the word like wishing health to someone who has gone through something difficult has the same core in that word as the word congratulations. So everyone who was sending each other kind of condolences or like wishing each other health, they all had balloons.
Crazy.
And that's
that's really that's interesting.
The other company that invested, you mentioned before, SoftBank. That was the and they invested heavily in the WeWork, right? So,
I think so. 100%. And what do you think about the, like, we touched a little bit on that, about the green finance, because we've been like, you know, it's been a hot topic for the last, I don't know, decade or like quite a few years. And then I think recently it kind of started seeing the backlash from the market, and especially under Trump's sort of politics, it's getting a bit more kind of backwards. What do you think about that? Like green finance in general, green tech, sort of, Gareth, especially your recent experience, super relevant.
Yeah, I think I have a few thoughts. So I think the investors have like a large role in shaping what it looks like. Like products like green bonds, or like, I don't know, indexes which are like carbon adjusted, for example. I think there's an opportunity for like investors to do like stewardship to like a certain extent. Like you want your like portfolio to be hedged against like environmental issues, or you want like your investments to have like a certain, I don't know, like a certain purpose. Like you want like a philanthropic like element. I think there's like a function to be performed there. But I think like large investment houses, like everyone needs to like make money. Like hedging against inflation is like inherently important. And I think there's like an ongoing debate or discourse that is like a dialectical between protecting against inflation and caring about the environment. Which is, I think, is a little bit of an interesting attitude, because I don't know, if our environment's gone, like we're gonna have to worry about a lot more than inflation eventually. But I think green investment or like green finance plays its role. I think things such as the trading of like carbon tokens, for example, I think that's like to like, I guess, like offset I don't know, certain projects. I think it performs a function. I don't think it's a solution. I think like genuine like environmentalism and like actually investing in like technologies that have like a sustainable impact, I think that performs like, to me, like a greater function. But I can understand ultimately like within like bigger financial institutions, like there is the need for like a green product, or like a European like article, I think it's like 8 or 9 product, having that like certain twist. I think I think they perform their function, but I think they're far from perfect. I agree. I think also in the UK it triggered a lot of VCs to actually start being, you know, a lot of green tech, like what's the name of it? The fund not far from here. What's the name? I'm almost forgetting. Oh my god, I don't remember. But anyways, there are a lot of VCs who actually started focusing on like green tech. I think a little bit more than previously. I don't know in my thoughts, but I think there's a bit of pessimism towards them. I think some like funds are a little bit pessimistic about the performance of like green funds or impact funds. I think there's been the case that some funds have like failed or had to close ultimately. So I think it's been tough at a point for like some green funds. Others have done better. Others less so. It's like, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think they have what I've seen like quite successful is like ones that have like angel syndicates, for example. So like Cambridge Angels, Oxford Angels, like Green Angel Ventures, for example. Like, guess like banking off the actual interests of the investors. I think that's been quite successful. I think it's easier than like structuring a fund. Like if you have a fund and you just invest in like a bunch of companies and like you're trying to get investors on board in that sense, it's a bit harder than if you're, I don't know, you have conviction on like one company. And then you're like, you already have like a list of investors who trust in you, and you're like, okay, like look at this company, like the technology they're investing in is like really novel. Like, do you want to support them? I think that angel structure works quite well.
So with angels, you would say it's easier than with VCs in terms of the green.
Wait, pardon?
So you would say with angels it's easier than with syndicates, it's easier than with like larger funds.
Easier, I'm not sure. I think it's more suitable. I think investors that care about the environment are going to care about companies that are specifically like for the environment. So I think that angel structure, like deal to deal basis, makes sense. I think that makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't say But easier. I think like bigger funds, like they're gonna like follow the waves, like
Follow the
AI,
waves, yeah, that's what
you
it
know,
was.
SaaS, like B2B SaaS, etc.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense, like to be like more cyclical in that sense.
Yeah.
So I guess like green tech, like you can find like a great idea, like a great university spin out,
Yeah.
or you might not find one. Like also,
Yeah.
I don't think there's like a cycle for it.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
it's a little different, I guess, like looking in that sense.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Rich, about this?
Yeah, it's interesting because like I'm just thinking about all the companies I've like come into contact this last 6 months, and not seeing a huge amount of startups in this space.
Yeah.
And I suppose like, have you got like a message for anyone who's like working on something, you know, themselves, like having that belief like it can go somewhere as well? Because to both of you, actually, I was just like wondering if there's like any message to like any founders that are like working on, you know, great projects that are, you know, great for the environment, you know, great for sustainability. So yeah, I don't know if like a message to them, like what they're working on is like it can, you know, be as well like a business, and you know people will invest in it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. So I recently heard from one energy company. It was at an event, so I'm not entirely sure what they do, but it's funny how they highlighted the slight change in messaging that helped them to continue conversations and still secure funding and everything. So basically, they have taken out the words net zero out of everywhere. So net zero is not popular, it's not fancy anymore.
Yeah.
So you just say like impact or, you know,
Yeah.
something, or you focus on like economic like side of it, just economics and like why this is good for the business. And you just leave net zero out for now and you're fine. But yeah, I do believe that in any project like this, in any startup like this, there's always a side of it that is related to, I don't know, in my case, because it's a bit too technical and complex, but basically the market prices for energy settle hourly. They don't settle annually.
Yeah.
So what we do actually helps companies save money, because you can hedge on an hourly basis. If you sign PPA that is better hourly match to your energy consumption in every hour than another PPA where you don't have that analysis. So as soon as you change the angle slightly, it definitely gets some attention.
And for you, because you've been in this business for a while, hasn't been like certain sort of changes in the market? Has they spiked for some period of time? Has the market went down? Sort of, what are the main things that impact the market from the perspective of, I don't know, investors, operations, like sort of, are there any fluctuations?
Do you mean like renewable energy startups?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sort of like, because how long you been in this startup for? A couple of years.
Just a couple of years.
Yeah. So have you seen sort of any specific periods of time when there were some changes in, I don't know, anything?
I definitely, I wouldn't be able to quote specific numbers for you because I'm not as hands-on day to day with investing specifically. But when I was joining the startup, the overall like feeling in the market, the environment was better, probably a little bit more positive than it is right now.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was just reading a report about last year's PPAs, which is power purchase agreements, so long-term energy procurement, renewable energy procurement, and it only went down 10% from the year before. Like it hasn't gone down dramatically.
Like
they're still signing those contracts, and what did go down was just the number of companies and the number of newcomers that signed those agreements. So it was actually Meta and Amazon at the top in the US signing most of it. So it's still popular, still there. Maybe not the absolute best year.
Interesting. What do you think would be the reason behind that? Would it be that, it's actually less on the actual impact, more on the kind of like ticking the box of, in green investment? Like, what do you think?
I think like when I haven't been in green investments for very long, but I think like what I've seen is that if a founder has like not a messy like growth to market strategy, but if you have like a very clear roadmap, for example, like you're raising seed to get this amount, you have like a pilot state that you want to do this with, and you want like to secure like X partnerships with with
Yeah.
why. I think like a really clear roadmap helps a lot.
Yeah.
I think that language of like impact, that language of like resilience, etc., that will be picked up by the right people, of course. And I also think like grants are your best friend. Like when
That's
you
actually a good point.
when you
yeah.
can't secure, or not when you can't secure, but when you're in the process of like trying to secure like VC funding, for example,
Yeah.
you can get like tons of grant money to like extend your runway.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is that like VCs want 24 months of runway.
Yeah.
That's just like the standard. And I think naturally this is going to lead like some, you know, like you want to raise at the right time, you want to be in the right position, you want to be at like the right stage of like your technological development, of course, and like, you want to get the science right. But like a bad growth to market strategy or like a messy business proposal, I think can really harm like the clarity or something.
Yeah.
Because ultimately like people want to invest in things they believe are like going to help the planet. You want to like find amazing science, you want to find like an amazing product, etc.
Yeah.
But I think if it's not communicated exceptionally well, like
Yeah.
what exactly you're going to use the funding for and how you're going to make it like cost parity, or you're going to make it like how exactly your revenue is going to come, how many streams there are, like what you're going to prioritize.
Yeah.
I think that growth to market strategy is extremely important in terms of communicating the idea.
Totally, I totally agree. I was about to say, even if the product is great, the go-to-market in this industry is rather like, you know, old-fashioned. I think it's not that. I don't know. You guys tell me, but I think it's not that disrupted yet. I think so. Probably it's the go-to-market is extremely hard. I think for founders that do it. Yeah.
Do you mean green?
Yeah, like in general, anything to do with like environmental impact. Yeah. Would you say it's sort of still kind of not disrupted enough yet, or would you say it's going
I'd
in the right
say
direction?
energy is not disrupted yet. I'd say
Yeah.
sustainability is probably a little bit more ahead of
Okay.
this. But even
Energy
when
is-
it's funny because even when you look at like industry events,
Yeah.
energy industry events and sustainability industry events, industry events, you can see a very diverse mix of people.
Exactly,
You can
yeah.
think that it's very kind of forward thinking.
Yeah.
You come to an energy event and it's white male in their 50s, all of them. Like there's no one else there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That is.
Interesting. Cool. That's quite interesting. Richie, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think it just, you know, it's good for, you know, somebody who's working on something, just giving them that bit more belief, like, you know, it can be a, you know, fully fledged business, and, you know, investors will back them, and like you say, get the science right, and I think like having a good go to market plan and also like factor it. And so many people like want to raise X amount because they, you know, they hear, you know, that's what their friends rose or, you know, raised or, you know, so it's like having like some like where you're actually spending the money, and also like they probably underestimate like a lot of the running costs of a, you know, a business as well when they start getting a bit bigger.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's very important to communicate the message correctly, like, you know, in terms of, you know, how you're going to do it, what is the actual impact and things like that. Yeah, it's a good point. Interesting. And the last one, sort of, not the last, but kind of like sort of the third area that I was super interested to talk about, and actually picked it up from another article of yours, Garat. This one is about, you know, the sustainability from the perspective of like investing into, you know, underrepresented founders, you know, the funding market in general in the UK, and then generally like how the sort of the financial flow works in this industry. And yeah, I read it recently that you wrote that I think it was at Impact X Capital, I think, fundraised about 100 million to invest in underrepresented founders, sort of as an impact investment from their end. So yeah, I just want to get your thoughts on in terms of like the financials and the funding. How do you think this market is being perceived by, you know, investors now? Is it sort of relatively easier than it was? Like, you know, just generally thoughts about that, because I myself we've fundraised a few times in the UK for our company, and we haven't. I mean, I don't know. We haven't felt a huge problem with that. But I know that this problem exists, and you wrote about it as well. So maybe if you want to maybe start. Yeah, sure. Thoughts on that topic.
So I guess like one of the stats that comes to mind might be slightly off, but it's about right.
Yeah.
Is that I believe women make up 42% of the founders and 14% of the funding. So that's like a key statistic. And even if you think in like that green tech space, like I don't think I've met at this point any female green tech founder. And even if you look, you can say like the investing board and the founding board almost looks representative of each other. It's like who is doing the investing looks like who is receiving the financing. And obviously there's VCs like Black Seed VC that host like roundtable events, etc. that are trying to like bring, different like kinds of VCs together and different kinds of founders together.
Yeah.
But I think there's inherently like a bit of a problem when we start to view investing in like diverse people as like an impact investment. I'm quite strongly of the conviction that I think like VC, if it truly seeks to facilitate, or VCs and startups in general, if they truly seek to facilitate, idea creation, value creation, innovation, that they necessitate like a diverse set of investors and also a diverse set of people from like different backgrounds who are actually like enacting ideas. And I think what ends up being the case is that there's almost this legacy wealth transfer within the UK. Like we have a big butler economy, which means like our banking sector, our accounting sector, our legal sectors are massive. And what this does is like there's like wealth management and wealth preservation that's massive, like the British aristocracy and like the older states, which maintain like a lot of their wealth. They then invest now into like EIS funds, like as a like tax reduction, cost reduction. But what ends up being the case is that we skip that like American dream of anyone can make it. Like it doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter where you come from, like be the best and like receive funding. But then ultimately like there's like a certain psychometric understanding of what we think a founder looks like. Maybe they're in the green tech space, they're going to be, I don't know, like white, 25 from Imperial, and that's what the team's going to look like. They're going to have done engineering and and the investor
did some internship in energy companies or something.
The investor might have come from like Goldman Sachs, done that for a few years, went to like Oxford or something. So what ends up being the case, I think, is that as an industry, it fails to capture value where we failed to look before. So I've rambled for a bit, but that's general sense of what I believe.
I agree. It's actually it's kind of it's making sense, because remember, Rishi, even today we had a guest in the office and he was saying that he's speaking with one investor in the US who is putting in like a million pounds check into the company, like a single angel from US. It's crazy. Like in the UK we don't have these numbers. It's crazy. But Luma, how was the fundraising journey for the company? Like have you guys went through like fundraising rounds sort of?
Yes.
What is that?
Yes, we did go through a couple of fundraising rounds. I joined Renewable just as they were going through the seed round. So the pre-seed round happened before my time at Renewable.
Okay.
That was just the founders, so two founders, CEO and CTO, and they raised the pre-seed. And then for the seed round, they did not disclose the kind of the full amount, just because of how competitive it gets and how like this company raised more than that company and this. We don't want that to be our value. We can deliver much more value.
That's actually good.
Yes,
Smart
and
point.
then what we, I guess, feel proud of is that all of our investors are specifically like in sustainability or like renewable energy fields. So Helen Ventures was one of them, was leading the last round. And then Toyota Ventures, and then Energy, and like a couple of other companies that are really present in the space. Nesta as well.
Cool. So it's pretty much very like sort of domain specific funds. So they are That's pretty interesting.
On your previous point, someone, again, please feel free to cut it out if redundant. But someone actually mentioned, I think that was at a podcast, but I have been using that line to explain why we need diversity ever since. So someone said to me, if we have an app for maps that is delivered without a person with limited abilities on the team, then we get maps without not ready for disabled people to use them. And that was really powerful for me. Maybe that was more beautifully said by whoever delivered that sentence initially, but I really loved that sentence because it just leaves you without anything to respond to that. You just have to have that diversity. And I know a couple of female founders, amazing female founders in the sustainability space. There's one who does a lot of work with batteries, so battery storage, and there's another one who's works very closely. She's the founder of Electron, so she works very closely with the system and the grid. Very technical. Maybe difficult for women to do that. At the same time, I want to play a teeny tiny like devil's advocate there. And another point of view that I heard recently. Sometimes in some situations, maybe not true universally, but it may be difficult for men to find, like, to start startups as well when the expectations from men are very high. So in a family, in very kind of traditional countries, the male person is probably going to be expected to keep them safe, financially safe, and provide for them, and they can't just quit the job that they might not have liked for tens of years. I was not going to be protective of men and actually push men founders. But it's also interesting. Like, I think all people have their own challenges on the way.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But the statistics was really, really impressive. 14% of funding.
Yeah. That is a great point that you said. I realized I never thought about it from that perspective, that actually, you know, the expectations from men to actually be employed and provided, it's actually higher, and it kind of,
another
it's
white
limited
male
as well
that
in
is
some
going
way.
to use this now.
It's actually interesting. Yeah. What do you think, Rishu? I think it's a great point.
I mean, I suppose like being a bit older, so like, you know, that was like something I just grew up around, is like, you know, you were the breadwinner, you know, but really that's those days as well, that's getting harder to do as a single income household, right? There's a lot of like, you know, my wife works at the BBC, you know, I work in tech, and, you know, on paper, everything, you know, you should be doing pretty well, but like everybody is pretty much in the same boat, like the cost of living, everything else. So yeah, I mean, I think some of the pressure is now going, you know, as a more of a unit, but most definitely, like I try not to think about it too much.
Yeah, fair enough. Cool, guys, and maybe just sort of as a final thought, we'll probably make it a tradition to ask guests at the end of the episode sort of this question. But yeah, what are your main sort of prediction for this industry? Because obviously, like, each episode will be dedicated to certain verticals. So I want to ask, you guys as people from the industry, experts, what is your prediction in general? You know, kind of the main big trend that you expect to see in the field over the next, I don't know,
It's interesting.
some years.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It was not on the list, so it's improvisation now.
No, I'm thinking. I think a few things. So not to ramble, but I think like just like piggybacking off like the conversation, I think like the barriers to entry to be like a founder are increasingly high. Like you need to like like a traditional founder, like just bootstrap like into a business. Like you don't have like dependents, you don't have like extortionately high rent. What I think the future of like the entire industry is going to look like is, I think to a certain extent AI is going to democratize like building. So I think being able to like put together an idea is more people going to have access to that as it becomes democratized. Yeah. But I also think we're going to become more sophisticated how we like utilize AI, how we like look at sustainability. I think sustainability is like it's like a rocking boat. Will eventually have its like swing back into like popularity. You know, if you look at like the political landscape in Europe, I think we swung like away from sustainability. Even in the UK, we became quite like Americanized, like quite pessimistic towards the environment. I think we'll make a move back. I think environmentalism will come back into like popularity, etc. And I think more generally, I think AI will receive some sort of, is it regulation, some sort of like standardization. I think there'll be some way, I think as the market like settles and we become more comfortable with it. Because I think there was a stat somewhere that said 84% of people like globally haven't touched AI like at all. Really? Something like that. So it's like, so crazy. It was the argument against it being like an asset bubble. It's like people make the argument, oh, it's an asset bubble, it's overinflated. But the majority of people haven't actually. And then even like out of that 16% that have, it's only like 4% who've really like been sophisticated, or even less than that, maybe 2%. I don't remember exactly. But I think what's going to be the case is that we're eventually going to get to a point where we become more sophisticated with utilizing AI, and I think it will integrate with sustainability. I think that idea of like water consumption, carbon consumption, I think will come to a point where, you know, governments will have to have like an initiative. They'll have like a call to answer.
Yeah.
How to like actually manage that. That's what I think. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I think we'll get to like some sort of like policy enactment.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there is definitely some regulation coming to that. Yeah. What do you think, Luma? What are your thoughts?
Many thoughts. I'm trying to say them in a very concise way. One interesting point of view that I saw at one conference was that every innovation is going through specific stages. So, for example, when the first printer was introduced, it was introduced in order to multiply Bibles for churches, because that's where the money were. And then from there, they probably did not expect like Pokemon cards and, you know, like everything that is printed right now. That's completely new. Like that's just a different case of use case for that innovation. Yeah. And I think we are somewhere in the middle right now. Like we kind of know that the possibilities are limitless. Yeah. But we have no idea how they're going to transform. Yeah. This is going to be something completely from like a different universe. Yeah. From the AI kind of powers perspective. Yeah. In terms of AI and sustainability, I do think that the, you know, how popular the green narrative is and the net zero, the sustainability narrative is, comes and goes in waves in a way. So it will be, and I was just chatting to Richie just before this about like the US versus Europe. It seems like in some ways Europe on the government and regulations level is almost trying to do the opposite to what the US is doing. So there's a couple of regulatory frameworks, CBAM, carbon border adjustment mechanism, that it essentially introduced hourly matching and like the need for evidence for like renewables, hourly matching renewables just now. So it's already required now for companies who import aluminium, steel, and something else, like a few different materials into the EU. And then corporates also have to like walk a very thin line in between the expectations. You know, if you're a global corporate, then you're not expected to kind of speak too much of net zero and sustainability in the US, but then at the same time you are expected to hit the expectations, the requirements in Europe. So it's a very interesting balance. I forgot where I was getting.
Website for the US, and it's more impact. There's no the scrub the net zero, and
so yeah, I do think it's gonna it's gonna return in on everyone's agenda, and it hasn't really left everyone's agenda if you think about it. It was actually the record number of sustainability claims and targets last year. According to CDP, the record number of corporates set sustainability targets last year. So even though everyone is like, no, we're not, but actually we are. So there's still something happening. I'm quite optimistic. The only question is whether that's going to be soon enough. Mm-hmm. So the only question from the planet perspective, from the environmental perspective is that strong enough as a regulatory framework to really change the perspective, the future of the planet, or is that not enough? But again, we could remain optimistic, and we could think about the fact that the humanity has gone through a lot of stuff already, so we might be able to come up with new solutions that we can't even imagine right now. So
do you mind if I just interject with a thought I had? I was also thinking about just how sustainability as like a concept, or like impact as a concept, has kind of become entangled with like national security. Yeah. So like when you see what happened in Europe and like energy crisis and the cost of living and that the cold winter, whatever they called it, and specifically understanding how like Britain is now positioned like developing our own like renewable sources of energy as paramount to national security. I think it's just interesting generally how sustainability becomes like entangled within like geopolitical regimes. And you look at like China or like the UAE building like solar panels and things like that, or like hydroelectric power, it almost becomes a tool to a certain extent of analyzing geopolitical power or geopolitical like influence in like a deglobalizing world. Your ability to like manage your own energy.
Yeah,
it's just interesting.
This is fascinating. This is a really, really good point actually, because I also noticed the same. It's for security reasons, for political reasons in a way, to say we don't depend on your energy anymore, we just do it ourselves, and also for economical reasons for sure, because in those amongst those companies that signed long-term power agreements last year, one surprising country that was actually at the top of the list was Egypt. And the reason for this was that they export aluminium into the EU. So for that regulation that I just mentioned, which it doesn't require it per se, but basically you're going to end up paying much more in CBAM certificate costs and carbon certificate costs if you don't provide evidence that you do it with renewable energy, if you produce aluminium with renewable energy. So in order to fit that regulation, they had to sign contracts for aluminium. So that was pushed by economics purely. And then China, that's another case for like, this is definitely cost effective, because nowhere on China, I mean, I'm definitely not a political expert here to comment, but nowhere on China's agenda, there's like a very strong sustainability, environmental narrative. Yet still, that's the country that signed to something like over 55% of the global, built over 55% of global solar generation last year. So the amount of solar that they built, that's purely for cost effectiveness and for not depending on other countries, not depending on other countries' fuels.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a fascinating point.
That's cool. That's really great ending line. Perfect. Thanks so much, guys, for sharing. I really, really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much for coming and sharing your opinions. Hope you enjoyed it as well.